Yes, here we go.
5, 6, 7, 8, and hit.
Hit is right.
Look at that. That was peak fashion, too. Can women go back to dressing like this, please?
Whoa! Look at
Thank
that.
you, Occupy My Life.
It puts the cheese on the meat or else it gets the basket.
Exactly.
It's Oscar night in Hollywood and the whole world is watching. This is Entertainment Tonight for Monday, March 20th.
Women, can you please start doing this again with your hair and dressing like this, please? Thank you.
26, 1990.
I'm not Dominican.
Hi, everybody. I'm John Tesh.
Fucking yeah, John. Alpha male John Tesh.
And I'm Mary Hart. The champagne's on ice, the gowns are all ready, and the speeches prepared.
Now remember, this is the Oscars of the 90s. This isn't the trans rights, we need to kill Donald Trump Oscars that they have today. This is the, hey, remember that movie came out?
All is ready for Oscar night in Hollywood. Last-minute preparations continued over the weekend for the 62nd Annual Academy Award Show.
Nice. Swap.
Choreographer Paula Abdul fine-tuned some dance numbers as Oscar waited in a crate outside the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion. The first fans arrived over the weekend, a full 48 hours before showtime.
Like WNBA fans.
Producer Gil Cates reminded TV crews from around the world that the show would have an international flavor, as 5 Oscars are to be presented via satellite.
Whoa! Like through, excuse me. Do you know the biggest lie ever told? Satellites aren't real. How did they present them? I walk around the corner, I can't even get cell service.
The hosts in the 5 cities are going to be Jack Lemmon in Moscow.
Jack Lemmon.
Charlton Heston will be in Buenos Aires.
Charlton Heston, OG for My Cold Dead Hands. Is that Harvey Weinstein? That kind of does look like Harvey Weinstein. Is that Harvey Weinstein on the left?
Mel Gibson and Glenn Close will be in London. And Brian Brown and Rachel Ward in Sydney, Australia.
And director Jeff Margolis.
Jeff Margolis, huh?
Said winners would have 45 seconds for thank yous. He had a word of warning for the long-winded.
At the end of the 45-second period of time, as soon as somebody stops to take a breath, Bill Conti, our musical director, will conduct the orchestra for a playoff, and we will carry on to the next thing.
Meanwhile, at a pre-Oscar black tie
Hold on, let's see all these fucking legends.
affair, most everyone was coy about predictions except Jill St. John, who said she had a favorite.
It's Jessica Tandy for her body of work as well as driving Miss Daisy.
ABC will telecast the Academy Awards live this evening, and an audience of 1 billion is expected.
So an audience of 1 billion. So just to show you how far Hollywood has fallen, so an audience of 1 billion, right? An audience of 1 billion in the 90s. This is before. The whole everyone got woke and everything was like you if you're not a Democrat you're a loser and all that stuff. And don't get me wrong, Hollywood was always liberal, but it wasn't like as in your face about it. Over 1 billion people watched it. The 2019 Oscars, 29 million. I mean, I would call that a significant drop. Can somebody give me a percentage? Some Frozen Asian, you're Asian. Do the math.
The movies, and there were 46 of them, never won an Oscar. But for over 70 years, for generation after generation, from 1918 through the 80s, the world sat on the edge of its seat. Our inside story today begins with the cry that will forever be unmistakable.
Tarzan, baby.
For more than 8 decades, Tarzan has remained one of the most endearing characters to ever come along. From the first silent film in 1918 with Elmo Lincoln, to Joe Lara in last year's Tarzan in Manhattan.
And don't forget, a little bit more after this, Brendan Fraser. Oh, wait, that's George of the Jungle. Sorry, that was a Tarzan ripoff.
More than 20 different actors have starred in over 40 films.
Big O! Big O!
Fans remember Johnny Weissmuller in the 30s Lex Barker and Gordon Scott in the 50s, and Ron Ely from the 1960s television series. For many, it was the experience of a...
Niggas riding a giraffe. 2.9% of the ratings. Thank you, Go On Commando. 2.9% of the ratings at the Oscars.
lifetime, one that abounds with
fucking riding a giraffe.
Some unusual war stories. At 62, Gordon Scott still retains the stature of the man he portrayed in 5 films, and he had his share of misadventures along the way. He once required 32 stitches to close a wound a lion opened, but his favorite story involves...
Listen to that. Fucking lions.
...involves a rather large boa constrictor that got a bit out of hand.
It got me. It was through my crotch and around my waist and everything, and it started cinching up. And I'm telling you, they had 4 guys to pull that damn thing off of me. I was talking soprano for about a week.
And Christopher Lambert, who starred in 1984's Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan, nearly ran into some real problems when he accidentally got a tiger by the tail while swinging through the jungle.
I didn't have my glasses on. I don't wear contact lenses, and I nearly missed the vine. I had this huge panther on my shoulder, and I...
Christopher motherfucking Lambert
grabbed the tail of the panther instead of the vine.
But the real champ when it came to mishaps was the TV Tarzan, Ron Ely. He suffered 17 injuries the first year alone that ranged from fractured ribs to lion bites. A publicity photo showed them off, but now he admits he took a lot of chances in his role.
It was a rigorous kind of schedule, plus I did not use a double in those days. It was something that I'm glad I did, but I'd sure never do it again.
But of all the men ever to lace up the loincloth, Johnny Weissmuller was the most famous of them all. The star of 12 films, he was a gregarious man who loved to joke around on the set. Maureen O'Sullivan, who starred opposite him as Jane, recalls a time high atop a tree when his playful antics helped create one of cinema's best-loved introductions.
Jane. Tarzan. Jane. Tarzan.
Johnny was a terrible tease, and he poked me, and he said, Jane. And I'm very much afraid of height. I was afraid I was going to fall. So I said, Tarzan. And he said, Jane. And we kept doing it back and forth, and the director thought it was nice. He said, leave that in. So that's the way that got in the script.
But for this Lord of the Apes, life off the vine was a tough one. 5 failed marriages, tax problems, and bouts with alcohol all ate up his fortune and ultimately his health. Toward the end, and...
Bouts with alcohol. Back then, I mean, people are still a bunch of drunks. But back then, it was just like, yeah, he likes to drink. Who cares? Who gives a shit?
Increasingly feeble, he clung only to the memories of his youth. Noted Tarzan historian George McWhorter says it was all he had left.
All he could remember was the Tarzan yell, which he ran up and down the halls of the hospital and thumping his chest and giving this yell.
It's hilarious. An old man is losing his mind, and it's hilarious.
To him, Tarzan was everything.
And luckily for us, the images of him at his best remain as timeless as the primal cry he helped make so famous. By the way, if you have a Jones for Tarzan movie, some of them are available on home video. Check your local video store. Tomorrow, Entertainment Tonight's eagerly awaited Oscar special. All of the behind-the-scenes excitement.
It's not eagerly awaited. And, man, back then, these guys used to wear really loose suits.
You can see nowhere else, only tomorrow on Entertainment Tonight.
I don't think they'll make another live-action Tarzan. I think they can't. Because, I mean, if they can't, they're kind of in a tough spot, right? Because if they use a white guy, they're going to be like, oh, that's not diverse enough, another white Tarzan. But if they use a black guy, they'll be like, well, that's humiliating. You're making the black guy look like he's not human. So how would you even make another Tarzan movie? That's not animated, of course. How would you make another Tarzan movie? Did one come out recently?